Ever wondered how a bank account management works? In this video, we're going to create this simple React application in which actually we can deposit and withdraw money, and we can control our balance, and we can see our transactions. We can see the transactions history, we can see the date that we actually did the transaction, and this is a super simple application to manage our balance, money, and bank account. This project doesn't have any backend or authentication. It's very simple, super simple for front-end developers. So if you are a beginner or an intermediate developer, it's a perfect project for you to improve your React skills. Are you ready? Let's start. All right, so first things first, let's create our React app using npm. Let me close this one. Using npm create Vite latest dot, and then let's choose React, and we're going to use plain JavaScript. Use roll down with no and install with npm and start now. We're going to choose no. So here we have our React app, as you can see, and now we need to install our node modules folder. So let's clear and write npm install. All right, now let's run the app using the command npm run dev. So our React app is running on port 5173. So I'm going to copy the link here and I'm going to paste it right here. So you can see that our React app is running on port number 5173. So the first thing we need to do is to go to the src folder. Let's delete this assets folder. Let's delete this app.css. And let's go inside app.jsx and let's clear out everything inside this file. And let's create our own React snippets using RFC. You can just type this part manually and get rid of this import React from React part because we don't need it. And then let's go to index.css and let's erase everything inside index.css. So, now we should see something like this. And now let's go to app.jsx and let's start creating our React app. So first of all, I'm going to give this div a class name of app. Inside this div, I'm going to create another div which has the class name of top. Inside that, I'm going to create two divs. The first one should have a class name of glow, and the second one should have the class name of glow secondary. Very good. Now the first thing we want to do is to create our animated background. So this top div is enough for that. So let's go to our index.css file. Now let's start from the default styling. We're going to give it a margin of 0, a padding of 0. Let's give it a box sizing of border box. And then let's give it a text decoration of none, a list style of none, and let's give it a font family of Roboto. Now let's go for the body. For the body, we're going to have a background of linear gradient, and we're going to give it a 135 degree, and the first color should be 01082C, and it's going to be 0%. The second color 01061D, it's going to be 50%, and the last color 05051A is going to be 100%. Very good. And to see the background color, let's give it a height of 100 view height. Now this is our project background color. The next thing we need to do is to give it a color of CCC, and we're done with the body part. Thank you. Let's go for the top, which is actually this div, this container div that actually contains glow and glow secondary. So I'm gonna give it a position of relative. And now let's go for glow and also the glow secondary. So I'm going to actually give some stylings to both this glow and this glow secondary. So let's give it a position of absolute, and then let's give it a border radius of 50%. Now let's give it a pointer events of none and a z index of -1. Very good. Now this glow should have a width of 60 women and a height of 60 women, and let's give it a background of radial gradient. Be careful, not linear but radial, and let's give it a circle at 30%. Now let's use RGBA colors 70 and then 23, 226 and 0.6. You have to be point, not comma, be careful. And then let's give it RGBA and 11, 90, 193 and 0.15. But now you have to give it a 60% here, RGBA and 46 and 36 and 34 and 0, but at the end you should give it a 70%. And now we have something like this here. I forgot to do something. We have this app here, app class. So go to this body part and select the app using the class and give it a padding of 100 pixels from top and bottom and 15% from right and left. Now this glow should be right here. Now let's go back to the glow right here. Now we're going to give it a filter of blur and 45 pixels. So it looks like this. Very good. Now we're going to give it an opacity of 0.8 and also, so it looks like this. Now for the animation, and we're going to handle the animation later, but now let's write animation. We're going to call it drift, and this drift animation is going to take 25 seconds, ease in and out, and infinite, and also it should be alternate. Very good. Now let's go for the second glow, which is this one. I'm going to copy this, I'm going to paste it right here. Now let's give it a width of 40 women, a height of 40 women, and then I'm going to give it a background. Again, it's going to be a radial gradient, and I'm going to give it a circle at 30%, and then I'm going to give it an RGBA 39, 81, 247 and 0.6, RGBA and 11, 90, 193 and 0.253 and 60%. Now RGBA, the third color, 46, 36, 234 and 0, and it's going to be 70%. So this is the third, this is the second glow, and let's give it a filter. Filter, blur again, and 45 pixels. Now, let's give it a top of 300 pixels. Now it actually comes down a little bit. Now let's give it a left of 70%. Now it goes right here. So the first glow is here and the second one is right here. Now let's give it a opacity of 0.55. Now it makes it a little bit more darker. And also let's give it an animation, drift secondary, and it's gonna take 28 seconds, ease in and out, infinite and alternate. Very good. Now we are pretty much done with the background, but now we need to make these glows to move. Now it's time for the animation. For the animation, we're going to create two keyframes. So keyframes one is called drift, and the second one, keyframes, is called this one, drift secondary. So now for the first one, let's give it a 0%. On 0%, we're going to have transform, translate 3D, and then inside that, we're going to say 0, 0, and 0. Now for 25%, or let me put it right here, it's cleaner. 25%, we're going to have a, let me copy this. Let's put it, sorry, let's cut it. I should have written it. So let's change the zeros to 12 vmin, 8 vmin, and 0. Let's go for 50%. For this, I'm going to copy and paste this one. For 50%, we're going to give it a 0 vmin, a 16 vmin, and again 0. For 75%, let's give it a minus 14 vmin and 10 vmin and 0 at the end. And for 100%, let's have a transform, translate 3D, and we're going to give it 8 vmin, minus 10 vmin, and finally, we're going to give it a 0. Now, as you can see, this glow is moving very smoothly and slowly. Perfect. Now, for the second one, we're gonna give it a 0%. The transform should be translate 3D. We're gonna give it a 0, 0, oh sorry, 0, comma, 0, comma, 0, comma, and 0. But give it a scale of 1. Now for the 33%, let's copy and paste this one, and let's give it a minus 10 vmin and a 12 vmin and 0, but the scale should be 1.08. Now for 75%, let's give it a, let's copy this line. Let's get rid of this scale because for this one we don't need it. But the numbers, this one should be minus 14 and this one should be 10. And finally, for 100%, we're gonna have a 8 vmin and minus 10 vmin and again 0. So now both our glows are moving very slowly and smoothly, and it makes a very beautiful scene of our project. Now for the next part, let's create the UI of project. Okay, now to create the UI of the app, we have a top part here. Let's close this one because we have nothing to do with it. So let me make a comment here. So this is the top, or this is the glow. So we know that this is actually the glow effect we have in our background. Now let's create a div here, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to give the class name of container to this div. So it's going to contain the whole app inside it. Now this container is going to have two parts. The first part is going to be a sidebar, and the second part, I'm simply making the comments using these curly braces and these signs, slash and asterisk. So the main part, this is going to be the main section. So let's quickly create the sidebar. For the sidebar, I'm going to create a side tag. I'm going to give it a class name of sidebar. And this sidebar should have an H2, manage your account. And you have this one here. And under this H2, I'm going to create a form. Erase this action, you don't need it. And up above the form, you can create an H3 and write deposit. Now under H3 and deposit, create an input, and the type should be number. let's give it a placeholder of deposit amount. And also let's give it a text area. And this, we can erase these attributes and just give it a placeholder of description, 3 dots. Finally, we need a button, and the button should have a class name. First of all, class name, it should be deposit btn. I don't think we're going to use the class name of buttons, but nevertheless, let it be there. And deposit, I should write deposit here. Oh, sorry, yeah. All right, so now let's go for the next form, which is actually the withdrawal form. You don't have to create a new one, just copy the deposit form and paste it right here. But all you have to do is to change a few things. So the deposit, this deposit should be withdrawal, and here you should, instead of deposit amount, you should write withdrawal amount. And instead of this deposit here, you should change this deposit to withdrawal button. And here you should write withdraw. That's it. So now you have 2 forms. This is the deposit form. This is the withdrawal form. Now, under that form, the last thing we need is a button for clearing the transaction history. So I'm going to create a button. And inside that button, I'm going to create a class name with clear btn. And inside that, I'm going to write clear all transactions history, for example, history. Or this all is actually, we can get rid of it. Clear transactions history. So this is a sidebar. We're pretty much done with it. Now let's go for the main section. The main section, before we continue, let me install a package. Let me open a new terminal. Now we need the React icons package because we're going to use 2 icons inside the project, and the icons we're going to use from the React icons package. So to install that, we type npm install React icons. So enter, and you can see if you go to your package.json, inside the dependencies, you should see this React icons package installed. If you have this installed, you can go back to your app.jsx, and up above your app.jsx, you can import now type out exactly what I write, for money bill and for folder open, and then after that you can write from, and then React icons and /fa, which means font awesome. Now we have these 2 icons here, and we can simply use them. So the first step, install the React icons package and then import them up above the app.jsx. Now let's go back to this main section right here. Now the main section actually starts with a div with the class of main. Now inside that, I'm going to have a div with the class of main header, which is actually the header of main part. Inside that, we're going to have a div with the class of balance, and well, inside balance we're going to write going to create a p tag, and this p tag should be your current account balance. And also now you need to bring the icon, so inside this p tag, exactly up above your current account balance, you can open a tag, and the name of the icon was a farm money bill. So farm money bill, and then close it. So you can see that I have this money icon next to your current account balance. And I'm going to change the style later. Now under p tag, I'm going to have an h1. Let's put a $sign inside it, and 2,589, which means actually, which is like $2,589. And we're pretty much done with the balance part. So this was the balance part, as you can see inside the main header. Now the main header has a message part. Let me create a div with the class of message, and this message actually has a p inside it, and this p actually says for example, you deposited $100 into your account. Now we're going to have a message after each transaction we do. So we are completely done with the main header part. So this was the header, or let's say main header. Let's write everything exactly the same they are. Now under the main header, let's create the transactions part. So for the transactions, let me create a comment, transactions. For the transactions, I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to give it a class of transaction, which is actually the container. Inside the transactions, I'm going to create another div, but this is going to have a transaction box class. But let's add a deposit class to the first one, and let's create two of them. So now inside the transactions, I have a div. I have two divs. Both of them have transaction box class, but one of them has deposit class, and the other one has actually the withdrawal class, because I want to change the colors. If the transaction is a deposit, it should be green. If it's a withdrawal, it should be red. Now inside that, they have the same thing. So the h2 here should be deposit, and let's give it a p, and inside that we're going to have a plus $200, and we're going to have a description, which is payment description, and let's say from my customer for the React project. You don't have to type this. You can type whatever you want. So now we need a date under that description part. So let's write a p tag here. I'm going to give it a p tag, and let's create a, for example, 25/10/2025. Just let it be, and later we're going to add the hours and so on. Let's give it a class name of date. So, but actually so we're going to handle the styling inside index.css. Don't worry about that. So what else do we have to do? The deposit is done. Now let's copy the whole thing here. Let's copy everything here and paste them inside the withdrawal one. So as you can see, now we have a transaction box right here, and we have another one right here. This one is deposit, this one is withdrawal. So I'm going to change the title to withdrawal, and instead of plus 200, I'm going to say minus, for example, $150, And let's, for example, change the description to shopping for the party. So, and let's change the date for now. All right. Now, if we have no transactions, let me close this transaction boxes. This is a transaction box. This is a transaction box. So this is box. This is another box. So if we have no transaction box, we're going to have a p tag with the class of no transactions, no transaction. Inside that, we're going to have a span, which is the icon. Which icon? This icon, file folder open. Now we're going to put this right here. And under the span, I'm going to write you have no transaction in your history. Now, that's it. Now the icon is there, the empty folder. Very good. Now we are pretty much done with the HTML code inside the component. We can go for the styling part, which is a super easy part. So where to start from? Let's go down under this drift secondary. I'm going to start with the container, and the container is actually this div, which actually holds the whole application. So the container should have a display of grid, and the grid template columns should be 1FR and 3FR. Now, if I want to show you what exactly happened, I can, now you know that inside the container, we have a sidebar and we have a main section. So if I give my container sidebar and container main a background, for example, I give it a background of tomato, and I will give this one a background of steel blue. You can see that what exactly this grid template columns 1FR, 3FR means. So 3FR for the main part, which means 3 times bigger than this sidebar, which is actually 1FR. Now let's give it a gap of 10 pixels, so you can see that there is a gap between them. Now I want to start styling the main part first, and then we go for the sidebar. So for the main part, let's go with a border radius of 12 pixels. So it has a border radius now. Let's go for the border or the padding, 35 pixels. So you can see that now there's padding. Now let's change the color of background. Let's change the background color to background. We're going to give it an RGBA color, 255, 255, 255, 3 times actually, and then 0.06. Now you can see it has a transparent look, very beautiful. And then let's give it a backdrop filter. It should be blur, and it should be 10 pixels. That's it. Now, let's go for the container main and main header, which the main header, let's go find it. This is the main header, the part that actually holds this, your current account balance and this balance part. So we say that this header should have a display of flex, and the justified content should be a space between, and the align items should be center. Now, as you can see, we have this part, the left part of the header, and the right part of the header. And this message, you deposited $100, is going to show up right here. So the next one, we go for, let me copy this line, and inside the header, we're going to go for balance and the p tag. The p tag should have a font size of 20 pixels, so it's bigger now. Now let's give it a color of E0, E0, E0. This is, we should delete it, and the margin bottom should be 20 pixels. Let's give it a display of flags, and let's give it an align items of center and a gap of 10 pixels. Because of this icon, you actually had to give it a display of flex and a gap of 10 pixels. So let's copy this line to balance, and now let's style our H1, which is actually the balance itself, but all you have to do is to give it a font size of 72 pixels. That's all. Now it looks very clear. So let's go for the transactions part, this part. Let's select the transactions. Let's give it a margin top of 50 pixels. Now you can see that there is a 50 pixel margin up above this transaction container. Now let's give it a display of flex and a flex direction of column, and a gap of 10 pixels. Let's go for transactions, transaction box, which is actually so these boxes, transaction box. So to this one, we give it a border radius of 12 pixels. Actually, why we give it a border radius of 12 pixels? Because we're going to give it a backdrop of blur again, and we're going to give it a 10 pixels. So now they have a color. So we actually gave it a border radius. Now we need to give it a padding of 20 pixels. So now they look like this. Very beautiful. Let's give it a display of flex, a flex direction of column, and let's give it a gap of 6 pixels. That's it. Now, one thing, well, first let's handle inside the transaction box. Let's copy this. Let's take the H2 and let's make the font size 17 pixels, so they are a little bit smaller. And also we need a red color for a withdrawal and a green color for deposit. So you know that I actually gave these boxes an additional class name, deposit and withdrawal. So let's take the deposit class, and let's give it a color of 19 C1 C7. See, this is the green color for deposit, and for the withdrawal you can give it a color of tomato. So now this is red. So whenever we have a deposit, the color is going to be like this. The title is going to be deposit, the sign is going to be plus, and on the other hand, when we have withdrawal, the color is going to be red. We're going to have a minus sign here, and so on. So the deposit, oh sorry, no. Now let's go for this no transactions here. The no transaction is going to have a color of CD, CD, CD. Sorry, CD, CD, CD. And let's give it a font size of 20 pixels. Let's give it a display of flex. Flex direction should be column. Justify content center, align item center. So I think I have a typo here. No transaction. Maybe I have a typo right here. No transaction. Oh yeah, here I need an N transaction. Now it works. I had a typo right here. Sorry about that. So no transaction. And now I want this icon to be so much big, 100 pixels, I mean. Now this icon is inside this span. So what I need to do is to take this no transaction and take the span inside it and say the font size should be 100 pixels. Now this part should show up if I have no transactions. I mean, if I, for example, let me delete these transactions. I have two boxes here. Let me delete them. If I don't have any transactions, these actually part, this no transaction p tag should actually show up. But if I have those, this one should go away. We're going to handle that in the React app later. So let's go for our sidebar style and get it done so we can start with our application. For the sidebar, we should go back to our index.css file. Let's go to the sidebar right here, container sidebar. Let's erase this. Actually, you know what? In this container main, you can copy the background and paste it right here. So the background looks like exactly like this main part, and you can also copy and paste this backdrop blur. Perfect. Now let's give it a all right, let's give it a border radius of 12 pixels. Let's give it a padding of 20 pixels, I think would be enough. Let's give it a display of flex. The flex direction should be column. Justified content should be center. Align items should be center, like this. And let's give it a gap of 20 pixels. We should give it a height of fit content because we want to make the position of our sidebar sticky. So let's give it a position of sticky. And we're going to give it a top of 50 pixels. Very good. So let's go for the form. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to say container sidebar. The form inside that, it should have a display of flex. The flex direction should be column. And then the width should be 100 pixels. And the gap should be 6 pixels. So our form now looks neater. Let's go for the sidebar form. We actually, this title is very big. So how about we go up and we make it a little bit smaller. Let's say sidebar, that was an H2, and let's say font size should be 18 pixels. It's better now. Now for the form, let's get the form. Let's go for the H3 inside the form. Let's give it a padding of, no, sorry, we don't need any padding. Let's give it a margin bottom 3 pixels. Let's give it a text transform uppercase and a font size of 14 pixels. Let's give it a letter spacing of 1 pixel. Now these are our H3s. The font size, sorry, not font size. Now they are small, neat, and beautiful. So let's go for the form input. There's a problem with my mouse, sorry. Input, and the input should have a padding of 10 pixels. So you can see that there's an input, there's a padding right here. Sorry, the inputs, not the text area. And the border radius should be 5 pixels, and the outline should be none, and the border also should be none. So now this is our inputs. Now let's go for the text area. The text area has actually pretty much the same thing right here, but we're going to give it a height of 100 pixels, and let's give it a resize of none, and I think that's it. Yeah, perfect. Now we have these buttons to deal with. I'm going to copy this, and we're going to style our buttons. So the button should have a padding of 12 pixels. Let's give it a border none, a cursor pointer, and let's give it a background color of transparent, and we're going to give it a backdrop of blur, and then we're going to give it a 10 pixel. The color should be white. So these are our buttons right now. Now let's give this button, this clear transactions button, a style. So the class for this button is clear btn. So we're going to give it a padding of 12 pixels. Let's give it a border none, cursor pointer, and let's give it a backdrop filter again of, again, blur, sorry, 10 pixels. And let's give it, actually we're going to give it a background color of RGBA 13, 50, 99 and 0.055. Then we're going to give it a border radius of 10 pixels. Now if I, oh sorry, let's give it a color of 3, I don't know, dB 8FF. Refresh now. Perfect. It looks great. Now, what else do we have? I think we're pretty much done with everything, but we can make this project responsive. It's not something you have to do, but it's cool if you do it. Let me just show you that if I make this project smaller, like this, you know, at the size of, I don't know, maybe 1300, we can do something special. Let me go to my project. Let's go to, at the bottom of the project, we can say media screen, and let's say max width, and then we can say 1300 pixels. So 3000 pixels, we can go up to this app that has actually, sorry, this one, the app that has 15% padding from left and right. We can take it and we can make this padding 5. So if we make it small, now you can see this app is now bigger. Now to 900, now to 980, to 980, let me copy this and say 980. You can erase this app, and what you can do is to go up above this top part. Where is it? Oh, we can go for the container, actually. Let's go for this container and let's bring it down here. I'm gonna make it just, you can just get rid of this and this, and the grid part, the grid template column should be just 1 FR. And now I have to do something else because this sidebar is still sticky, so this looks like this. So to fix that, we're going to select the container and the sidebar, and the sidebar, the position should be relative, and the margin bottom should be 60 pixels maybe, or 100 pixels. Let me check. Yeah, 100. I think 60 is enough. 60 pixels. Yeah, that's perfect. Now if you make it smaller, it looks pretty good. Very good. Okay, one thing I want to change is, before we go to the application and our main task, I want to make the look of these dates different. I want to change the color. So to do that, I will, let's see that inside the transaction box, we have a, well, date class. So let's get the date class and let's come under this no transaction span. And let's say that the color should be, let's give it a CCC color. And also let's give it a font weight of 800 and a font size of 14 pixels. And let's give it a margin top of 10 pixels. Now looks better. Now we are pretty much done with the UI of project. We can go for our application and we can start making it work. Let's go. All right, now the first thing we need to do is to bring our 2 hooks, 2 React hooks. So let's import useState hook. which is the first one, and use effect, the second hook we actually need. Now, inside the app function, up above this return, let's create our states. So first thing, the first state we need is the state of balance. So let's say const balance, set balance is equal to use state, and normally I would say that the default value for balance should be 0, but because I want to store this value of balance into local storage, I actually create a function. Let's say we load the balance from local storage or get the default value 0. So let's say return parse float local storage and get item, and the name of this inside the local storage is going to be balance. And if there's no balance, you should show 0 as the default value. Now the next one is actually the const of transactions. So this is the array of transactions, and let's say set transactions equal to use state. And normally, again, we should give it an empty array as a default value, but again, because I want to store the data inside local storage, I create a function, and inside that, let's say we load the transactions from local storage or get the empty array. That's it. So let's return JSON parse local storage, get item and the transaction. So we're going to get we're going to actually define our transactions into local storage as transactions, and also if there's no transactions, we actually show an empty array. Now let me explain to you what actually these two lines do. Parse float is a built-in JavaScript function that converts a string into a floating point number. So parse float local storage get item balance, actually you're retrieving balance from local storage, which always stores values as a strings and converting that string into a number. If the stored value is the string of 100.50, parse float turns it into 150, the actual number. So it turns it from a string to an actual number, floating number, let's say. And the JSON parse, this line, it actually converts a JSON formatted string back into a JavaScript value. So if you have an object like box A, so it turns it into a plain JavaScript object like box B. So this is as simple as it is. So now we have defined two of our most important states. Now let's go for the state of messages, because we want this message to have a state. Let's say const message, set message, and let's set it equal to use state. And we are not going to store the message into local storage, so you can just give it a default of string right here. We do not store it in local storage because we want this message to show up for 5 seconds and to disappear after 5 seconds. So after the message, we create our use effect. And why actually we create our use effect? Well, use effect saves balance and transactions to local storage whenever they change. So whatever change we make here, for example, if I add $50 to my account, so use effect is going to actually handle that change and show it into the UI. If I create a description, if I create a withdrawal amount and description, the use effect is going to manipulate the value. It's going to load the new transactions right here. And let's create our use effect. So use effect, and let's create a function. Sorry, use effect. Let's create a function. Inside that, let's say local storage set item balance. So the balance inside local storage is going to get the value from the actual balance, and local storage set item and transactions. So the transactions is going to well, let's say it's gonna get the value from JSON stringify, and then we put the transactions inside that. So as a dependency, we say balance and transactions. So you should be careful. Balance and transactions should be here as a dependency. Now we are pretty much done with our states and use effect. Now we need to go for our handlers, our functions. Now the first function we're going to create, let me write here 2 asterisks, handlers. Now let's go for the handle deposit, or let me write here handle deposit const handle deposit handle deposit, and let's give it an E as the event, and this is our function. Now the first thing we need to do, you know that if I submit these forms, the page gets refreshed. Am I right? So the first thing I want to do in this React application, I want to prevent these forms from their default behavior. So what I need to do is to use this event and use the prevent default method on the form. Now it doesn't actually make any changes because these forms have no idea what to do. So I will copy this handle deposit, and I will go to the aside and the form of the deposit, and inside the form tag I will write a on submit, and then inside that I will create a handle deposit. I will actually put the handle deposit. Now this form knows that whatever I write here, this form actually needs to follow that rule. So if I click on deposit, you know that nothing happens. But for the withdrawal, it still actually refreshes the page. So to fix that, we create another function called handle withdrawal const handle withdrawal, and again we give it an event, and we actually apply that e.prevent default method to handle withdrawal as well. Let's copy handle withdrawal. Let's go to this form, which is the withdrawal form, and then let's say on submit. We should put this handle withdrawal. Now if I try to submit withdrawal form, nothing happens, no refreshes. Perfect. Now let's go up. After we prevent default the form, we need to create 2 variables. Let's handle the handle deposit first. Const amount, which is the amount of balance, the amount that we actually want to add or subtract from the balance. So we say parse float e.target.amount.value. So it means that we actually, this amount and this e.target.amount.value is the value that we actually give this input. And another thing we need, another variable we need, is the const of description, and it's gonna be e.target.description.value, and this actually is going, this e.target description value is gonna come from this text area. So yeah, now before we take any further steps, we need to define a condition here. So we say if there's no amount or amount is less than or equal to 0, so you should just return, because these are not valid amounts. Nothing is not a valid amount, and an amount under or equal to 0 is not a valid amount. So in this case, do nothing. But if there is a valid amount, you should set balance to balance plus amount. See what's happening here? If I say, for example, if the amount is valid, you should get the amount, for example, is 50. And if the balance is 2,589, it's going to add the amount of 50 to this 2,589. It's very simple. Now let's set transactions. And inside that, we write, just take a look at all the transactions, the array of transactions. And now add this one. The type should be deposit, because we are actually in the handle deposit function. And the amount should be there, which actually we get it from here. And also there's a description, which is not required, by the way. And we're going to also add a date. And the date is going to be the new date. So we're going to use the object of new date. And let's use the toISO string method on it. Perfect. And after we handle the balance and transactions, we need to set our message. So let's say, let me comment here, show the message. So we say set message. After we actually handle this, use template literals, please. Don't use quotation marks, because we want to use a variable inside this string. So we say you deposited, and then put a $sign, and inside curly braces, amount dollars into your account. So for example, if you have here 50, the amount is 50, so you deposited $50 into your account. And now I want this message to go away after 5 seconds. I don't want it to stay there forever. So I will use a set timeout, and I will say that you should set message to an empty string, but after 5,000 milliseconds, which means 5 seconds. And then please the target.reset. So it means that these inputs should be resets. That's it. All right, for the withdrawal, we should pretty much do the same thing. And I think it's better to test the deposit form and see if it works. And if it worked, we can go for the withdrawal form. So let's go to our deposit form here. Let's give the input. First, let's change the type to number. These shouldn't be text, should be number. And let's give it a name of amount. And also the text area should have a name of description. Very good. So I think everything's fine. Well, let's go to the main section, and here inside the main header, let's go for this H1, which is the amount. Let's erase this 2,589, and let's say it's gonna be the balance, the actual balance. Now you can see that this is 0. All right. Now if let me refresh. If I add $50 to my account and say, for example, for a project, this is a description, for example. Now, if I add that, you can see that I have now $50 in my account, and these inputs get reset. So my form actually works perfectly. Now let's handle this message, because this is hard-coded as well, so we need to handle it. let's find it. To the main section, to the header. This is the message: you withdrew $100 from your account. So yeah, let's erase this, or you know what, let's get the whole p tag and let's open and close curly braces, and let's say if there is a message, what should you do? You should show this p tag, but instead of this hard-coded withdrew, you can erase it and write the message inside it. So now if I add $150, we can say, for example, for, I don't know, let's say at $1,500 salary for 2 weeks, and deposit. Now you deposited at $1,500 into your account. Very good. Now our balance actually doesn't have that comma, so to give that the comma, you can just use to local string, and now we have the comma. So it actually looks like the number for a money. So perfect. Now that everything works, we're going to handle the withdrawal form. The withdrawal form has actually pretty much the same functionality as the handle deposit. So I'm going to copy the whole thing inside the handle deposit. Let's copy everything. So I actually copy all of it. So let's copy it, and then let's bring the whole thing. I'm going to erase this ePrevent default, handle withdrawal, and then paste it right here. So inside handle withdrawal, I have ePrevent default, and then I have amount, parse float, blah blah. So we need to make a few changes. First of all, set balance should be balance minus amount. And second of all, the type should be withdrawal. And also the message should change. We should say you withdrew the amount, and into should be from your account. I think the other things are the same as the deposit function. So let's copy the name of handle withdrawal, and let's go to our form right here. Oh, we actually assigned it before, but let's give the input the name of amount. The type should be the type of number, and the text area should have a name of description. That's it. All right, now we can test it right now. So let's say we have $500 shopping for the party. Now if I withdrew, now it changes and you withdrew $500 from your account, and the message goes away. Perfect. Now we can handle these transactions here because they are hard-coded and nothing changes here. So in order to do that, let me first erase my local storage. I want to start everything from the scratch. So if you are, I hope you are on Google Chrome. So you should right click on the page and go to inspect, and let's go to the application. And inside the application, you have this storage section, and you have a lot of storage such as local storage, session storage, and so on. So let's go to local storage and click on your domain name, and you see some values saved right here. So all you have to do is to click on them and then hit the delete button. Now, if you refresh, you see that the amount is 0 again because you actually cleared your local storage, and you actually started everything from the top. So to make these transactions work, I need to make them dynamic, and in order to make them dynamic, I have to find them. Let me go to let me close this aside for now. Let me go to this main part. Let's close this header for now, and let's go for the transactions right here. So as you can see, we have two transactions boxes, number 1 and number 2. One of them is deposit, one of them is withdrawal. We don't need both of them, so I'm going to delete one of them. So the deposit only is enough. I'm going to make it dynamic. And now under the transactions, and I'm going to handle the transactions, and I'm going to make them dynamic. So the first thing we need to do is to open and close curly braces. So we say the transactions, if their length is greater than 0, it means that if the length of array of transactions is greater than 0, means that if there isn't transaction. So what should you do? You should transactions.map. So you should map through the transactions. Let's call each transaction a T, and let's get them by the index. And now we say if there are transactions, so you should show this div. But if there's no transaction, what you should show this p tag. Perfect. Now let us review the code again. It says if the transaction.length is greater than 0, which means there are transactions inside the array, so you should map through the transactions. If there's no transactions, what you need to do is to show this p tag with the class of no transactions. And this is actually showing this one. You have no transactions in history because you have nothing cleared up. So now we need to make some things inside this transaction dynamic because everything here is hard-coded. So I am going to delete this class name inside the transaction box. I'm going to delete the class name until here, and then I'm going to open and close curly braces, then put template literals, and then you should say the static class name is transaction box, but we need to change something. The transaction type should be dynamic. So if we have a deposit transaction, it's going to be deposit here. If we have a withdrawal, it's going to be withdrawal here. So it handles actually the color of the transaction boxes. Now I forgot something very important. Each div, each transaction box should have a key of I, which is actually index. So we are identifying our boxes using the index. So use this index as the key. So this div should have the key of I. Now for the h2, let's create another dynamic value. Let's look at the t type. If this equals to deposit, what should you do? You should show deposit. If not, we should show withdrawal. Now for the p tag, let's erase this 200 and this plus sign. And let's say if t type is equal to deposit, what should you do? You should show a plus sign. Otherwise, you should show a negative sign. And then you have to show that the transaction amount. And this $sign is here hard-coded. Now the description, let's grab the whole p tag here. Let's say that if t dot description, if there is a description inside our transaction, what should you do? You should show this p tag inside that, but let's erase this one and let's make it dynamic. T.description. That's it. Now, if there is a T description, if there is not, so nothing's gonna show up here. And the last p tag is actually our date p tag. Let's erase inside that. It's pretty much easy, but can be a little bit complicated if you don't pay attention. So pay attention. We're going to open and close curly braces. We say t.date, and then what should you do for t.date? Let's get the new date object, and inside that we have t.date. So we turn it to local string, and then the type is going to be English US date, and let's say that the year should be numeric, and the month should be short, and the day should be numeric. The hour should be 2-digit, and the minute should be 2-digit. And finally, if the date has any problems or is invalid, we should write date not available. If the date is not available or there's a problem, we always need a backup message. So we say date is not available. So I think we're pretty much done with the transactions part. Shall we go and check our form? So here we have our form. We have $0 inside our account, and we have here you have no transactions in history. Now let's add $250, and we say for a mini project in our office. Now we deposit. Perfect. Now we have $250. We have this message, and we have the transaction history. The type is deposit. The amount is $250 plus, and the payment description for a mini project in our office, and we have the date. Now let's take $500, and let's say that for our or let's say for a PHP project. So now we have $750. We have the $500 plus here, and the payment description for PHP project. This is the time. Now, if I want to take $400 shopping for the weekend. Now, if I withdraw, you can see that the now I have $350. I have the message, and also I have a withdrawal transaction box here, $400 negative, and shopping for the weekend. So everything's working perfectly. Now, if I want to clear this transaction history, if I click on this button, it does nothing, obviously, because I actually have done nothing for this button. Let's make this clear, all transactions activated. So let's go to this let's close this functions handle withdrawal. I'm going to close it. Let's close this handle deposit. So we have actually a cleaner site. And let's close this use effect. And very good. Now under this handle withdrawal, I will write a clear all transactions. And let's say the const handle clear transactions, and then inside that we're going to say set transactions, and we're going to set the transactions to an empty array, which is the default value, so it actually clears out everything. And let's set the message, because we're going to show a message after that. All transactions have been cleared. And also, you need to set timeout. and you should actually set message to go away to be an empty string, but after 5,000 milliseconds, which is actually 5 seconds. Now you need to take this handle clear transactions. Let's go down to our sidebar. This is it. And let's go to the button, clear all transactions. And let's say on click, you should do that. So let's refresh. Now we have 3 transactions. If I clear all transactions, you can see that all of my transactions are gone and all transactions have been cleared. I think it's appropriate to ask the user if the user is sure that he wants to clear all the transactions. So let's go to the handle clear transactions again. And let's say if window.confirm are you sure, then we open this curly braces and take the whole thing here and then put it right there. So this way, if we have any transactions, let's say for example $1,000 salary, and let's say $200 equipment for the office. Now, if we want to clear all of them, window confirm asks the user first, are you sure? Now, if you click on OK, it will actually handle the clear. It actually clears everything. But $200 test. But if you actually clear everything, but you click cancel, it's not going to take the action. 500 test, and that's it. Now, if you don't write any descriptions, for example, $1,000 and no description, it's going to actually handle the situation, but there is no description inside that. That's it. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I hope this was useful for you. If you had any further questions, if you wanted me to create any specific projects for you, just drop me a comment and I will take care of it. Thank you so much.